My family and I had just made the 5-hour drive from our house in Mason to my grandparents' house near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The moment that we stepped through the door, we were greeted by the sweet aroma of Italian pasta. We were immediately ushered into the dining room, where the enormous table was blanketed with a bright red tablecloth, covered in dish upon dish of food. In the very center of the table, much like a cornucopia or flower vase might sit, sat the tray of still steaming lasagna. I went for the lasagna first, heaping a large piece onto my plate. As always, it was delicious. "Grammy, your lasagna is amazing," I said. "Thanks, sweetie, but it isn't my recipe, it's his," she replied, rotating in her seat and pointing to an old football team picture hanging on the wall in my grandpa's Steeler bar. The recipe came from Franco Harris, one of the greatest football players of all time. My grandma was one of the best cooks that I know. Whether she was owning her own restaurant, catering events, or just preparing meals for our rare family get togethers, she was always in the kitchen, experimenting with and cooking delicious food. Almost all of her recipes were of her own making. Very rarely did she put her trust in someone else's cooking instructions. So you can see why it may have come as a little bit of a shock for me to figure out that her very famous lasagna recipe was not actually hers. The fact that Franco Harris's lasagna recipe has become one of our family recipes shows a lot about me and my family. Our family is very close, and we believe that there is no closer relationship than kin, and food plays a large part in defining family rules, and traditions. For our family, the lasagna is tradition. Because I live so far away from my grandparents, when we do get to see them, we cherish the time that we have. In our family, one of the ways that we get the most meaning out of our relationships is through meals. According to Foster, whenever people eat and drink together, it's communion. We can make our meals stretch out for almost 2 hours because sharing food with someone is a source of communion, and we take advantage of the few meals we get to share with our relatives. To make the most out of a meal, you can't just serve any dish. Not only does the food have to be liked by everyone at the table, it should also unite. According to Catherine Twist, food is commonly used to establish intersocial cultural strata as well. Particularly food acquisition, preposition, and consumption patterns are frequently associated with the fundamental cultural categories. Eating lasagna from Franco Harris's family represents our cultural identity and heritage. In Franco Harris's prime on the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had a group of followers called Franco's Italian Army, who followed him and supported him throughout his football career. Harris was a phenomenon in Pittsburgh and was the mascot of many things that Pittsburgh was proud of, like its football team, steel industry, cultural diversity, and hard work ethic. Even though Italian blood does not run through my veins, Pittsburgh pride does. Although my ancestors are originally from Europe, it's hard to relate to a culture that no one still living in my family has experienced, so we celebrate our roots here in America. I was born in Pittsburgh, and my family has been in Pittsburgh for over a century, helping to build it up. Wait a second, that's not it. Although my family no longer lives in Pittsburgh, it's still our hometown. When learning to read and multiply by tens, I also learned that Franco Harris caught the Immaculate Reception with less than a minute left to beat the Oakland Raiders in 1972. So when we eat Harris's lasagna, we unearth the hometown cultural bond that we share as a family. It's symbolic of my family coming home to Pittsburgh. We all share a meal native to our Pittsburgh heritage in the city of Pittsburgh.